everyone, welcome back from the weekend and welcome to session 2 over Introduction to SQL or Structured Query Language. I hope you had a great session 1. I really appreciate all the work you guys did in session 1. Your databases look good, your discussion boards were great. Thank you for all of that hard work. So let's continue here in session 2 and let's take a look at what all is due of you or expected of you this week. If we scroll down here in Blackboard, we'll see we do have some reading assignments. In our Chromebook, this is chapter 2. You'll need to take a look at that one very carefully. This chapter is an introduction to the structured query language, or SQL. Sometimes you will hear this referred to as SQL as well. We'll talk a lot about understanding the use of extracted data sets in business intelligence systems. You might hear the term BIS or BI once in a while, and that just stands for business intelligence systems. We'll talk about ad hoc queries in the BIs, or business intelligence systems. Want to understand, if you read this chapter, the significance of using SQL or structured query languages. We'll go over the framework for SQL, and it's really just knowing that a basic SQL statement has a select, from, and where clause in it. So you're essentially saying select this data from this source where it meets this criteria. Once you get the understanding of those basic concepts, writing SQL scripts will come to be a fun practice because you are seeing immediate results from your properly structured SQL sequence. So I hope you guys will enjoy doing these. We'll do a lot in this where we're creating SQL queries using different keywords such as topped, top percent, distinct. We're going to go over order by, group by clauses. So this chapter is a very thorough, very fun chapter. I hope you will enjoy all the different operators, using operators that you're used to before, like and, or, not. So select this with, as an example, with an employee with a gender of female and is under the age of 60 is an example of using an and operator in your SQL scripts. So there's a lot of examples here in the book. I just hope you guys will enjoy this new tool that you're going to have in your IT toolkit. So I hope you guys will really take to heart and practice the skills from this chapter. You also need to look at 10A once again, only this time you're going to continue your reading from pages 13 through 32. So make sure you take a look at that. Now with the 10A, what you're really going to do in this pages 13 through 32 is more work in your Microsoft SQL Server, where you're working with the SSMS to set up a database in your SQL Server, and then make sure to how to run some scripts. So it's a very good practice going into your actual assignment this week. So make sure you go through this and work through this step by step prior to doing your assignment for this week. You also need to look at the Conger book, and we're going to be doing 2 chapters in this one, chapters 1 and chapter 2. Now chapter 1 is just over like who needs a database. And that chapter you're going to identify a situation in which a database could prove valuable for its use. Another part of the chapter is to go over the brief history of databases, then identify some of the components of a relational database, such as entities, which we briefly discussed last week, and fields, just kind of getting a good feel for that, and to then look at the general information and major topics for this, kind of go over an interview. You'll observe one of those in the reading, and how to gather information about a database for your customer. Then in chapter 2 we're going to go into that first step over gathering information and the importance of looking at a situation and look at the opportunity for a database, and then doing such things as interviews, taking casual observations of what the customer needs, reading important documentation that might or might not exist, gathering various information about the data that the database for a customer is going to need to store, as well as talking about preparing yourself for your initial interview with your customer, how to actually conduct the interview, what's needed in that interview, preparing maybe a questionnaire going into your interview, the importance of that, and of course having that initial questionnaire can be helpful later on if there are other customers involved in the scope of the project that you can then get other information from that may not be the same as what you're getting from the initial person who needs the database. So there's a lot of information that we're going to actually read about, but then there's a lot of hands-on that you're going to do, especially here in pages 13 through 32 in your Chromebook book, and as well as what you're going to do for an assignment for this week. If we scroll on down here, we will see that there is, of course, a discussion board this week over the database design and the information gathering. See how it ties right into those chapters you just read. Now you will need to go out and do some external research beyond the book for this. As you can see, you need a minimum of 2 articles to tie into this discussion board that are on database design, which discuss information gathering. Then you need to write a summary on what those steps are that are suggested based on those, and then provide your opinion on which proposed options make the most sense. So make sure that you have at least 2 minimum articles for doing this database. Once again, you need to have your initial posting done and submitted up in Blackboard by the end of day Wednesday, and this is to give your classmates ample time to respond to your posting. If you're posting it on Sunday, people aren't going to be able to respond. Everyone wants to get their work done, so have your initial done by the end of day Wednesday, and then have your minimum of 2 replies to your classmates done by the end of day Sunday. As you can see here, your initial posting should be a minimum of 300 words. Now this does not count the words that you put when you put your references in at the bottom of your discussion post. These are actual words that are in the body of your work. And then when your replies, those should be a minimum of 50 words in length of substantive information, not just, hey, I like what you had to say. So make sure you build on what they had to say, create more discussion. Alright, once you've completed your database work, or at least got your initial posting done, then you can move on and do this hands-on part here. You can see create the Cape Cod database in your SQL Server Management Studio, and you'll be using this tool. Just make sure you download this document, go step by step to get everything done for this week. You'll be once again using the snipping tool to take pictures and copy those pictures, paste those into a Word document to show that you've completed the assignment and that you've ran the 2 scripts that are in here successfully. Just as a little add-on, I find it necessary I like whenever I write a script, especially if it's a complex script, to keep those in a notepad document somewhere or a text document somewhere, so that when I want to use them again or modify them, I have easy access to those and I'm not starting from scratch. And you'll find out this is very helpful as a database administrator, or if whatever your job may be, to where you're writing scripts. You might even have in your ticketing system or whatever you're using at your place of work to be able to create like a knowledge base article, and then having these scripts in there is a great reference tool. Alright, then you can see once you've got that completed, the last assignment for this week is this assignment here in Chapter 2 Practices. Do page 37, and you go there, do number 2, 3, and 4. So when you go to the Chapter 2 Practices section near the end of the chapter there, you do obviously need to have read Chapter 1 to be able to use and apply some information here to those practice questions at the end of Chapter 2. And when you look at those, you're only going to do 2, 3, and 4. And 2 just talks about, it's going to show you a figure of a report, and once you, using the information you gathered from the first 2 chapters, to list who you believe the stakeholders are that should be interviewed for this project. At question 3, you're going to use a form that is located in practice 2 to be able to see what abbreviations that are listed there, to kind of say what doesn't make sense to me. So make a list of questions you would ask if you're going to make a database to store this data here using the form for practice 2. And then number 4 is to create a questionnaire for the users of the form with 4 or 5 questions, and the goal for doing this should be to understand how and when they should use this form from the practice section. And when you complete these 3 questions in the practices section of chapter 2, you'll see that this is actually practical information. You may go into a business and take a look at some paper form that they're using or paper report, and then have to create an understanding of what the reasons are that they use this or feel they need this in the organization, and then how you can incorporate that or build that into the database that you're working on. So hopefully you guys will find the relevance of doing this assignment. So when you're done with it, make sure that you submit your answers in a Word document. Make sure you answer the questions thoroughly. You can see at minimum, roughly, it takes about 300 words. I can't emphasize this enough. Make sure that you're checking the spelling and grammar. These are professional documents. Treat this as if you're at a job and you're submitting this work. You don't want your boss to not get the important information from the work you're submitting to him if it's full of all these mistakes and it's just hard to read. You'll probably find yourself maybe not having that position for long if they decide that you're not a good fit for that because of the poor grammar and spelling. I have seen it in the real world. Alright, so make sure that you take a lot of time this week to make sure you do the reading prior to doing these assignments. You'll find it is absolutely crucial to getting your assignments completed and understanding better how to use the SSMS tool that you've got installed. And I just hope you guys will find all the hands-on stuff this week just invaluable for what you're wanting to accomplish for the course and learning these actual skills that you can apply out in the real world, in the business world. Well, thank you guys. Feel free to contact me with any questions you have throughout the week. I know there were some difficulties people had with their databases last week. A lot of that was just making sure that you didn't fat finger something or that you included all the information in those tables. Make sure that when you're writing, if you're practicing your scripts, you're paying attention to the syntax, and just be careful. That's I've seen, and I've done it myself, too many mistakes can be made when you're doing scripting just by simple syntax or misspellings. Alright guys, let's have another great week. Feel free to contact me anytime, rmartinjr@ivytech.edu, or if you're on campus, feel free to stop by.